Hello, Helen. Nice to have you here in Berkeley again.
Thank you, Beatriz.
What do you think are the most pressing problems in Guatemala today?
I think that the main problems has been corruption and impunity. In the past, maybe it was corruption and impunity for the human rights violations, but after the peace accords, it became like a democratization of corruption. So the money didn't went and were not invested for the most vulnerable population, and all the services and all the human indexes are worse than during the conflict. So that's the main problem.
So to you, absolutely, without dealing with corruption, all the other problems, human rights, economic issues, political issues, cannot really be solved. That's the number one issue that needs to be
I would
fixed.
say that it would be like the transversal problem with discrimination and marginalization. And if you don't have a strong judicial system, I think everything will remain in impunity.
Mm-hmm. How do you view Guatemala 5 or 10 years from now? And what is it that the Myrna Mack Foundation, other NGOs, or civil society or students can do to help in that process of bringing about comprehensive changes in the society? Or is that not even possible, you think, in 10 years from now?
I think that in like around 2001, 2000, with the new government, human rights organizations, we saw how this corruption and all these human rights violators were changing into networks of corruption, and human rights leaders and social leaders were object of many criminalization and persecution. So that's why we start proposing the International Commission Against Impunity in Guatemala. And that's what is working right now. And this in CICIG now is touching the heart of the problems in Guatemala, of this alliance of the politicals, the economic sector, and the military. This alliance of these three sectors was never touched, and today they are. So I see this is a process since 2000. I would say that when the genocide trial started, young generations start having their own, seeking their own critical voice. And I think that was like the mission of changing the minds of the Guatemalans. And then in 2015 came the cases of corruption of the government, and that's why we went to the plaza, and the president, the vice president now are in jail. So I see that, I see it with hope from here into 5 years, because there is a new generation that they're willing to change. They are seeing by their own experience how Guatemala can be changed, but they have to be patient. I think we're just start walking into the storm. We haven't not even get into the eye of the storm, and even that, after that, we have to, after the eye of the storm, we're going to still have some problems, but I think I have hope.
Can you explain what CICIG is and how important it is in terms of that storm that you're talking about?
Well, the International Commission Against Impunity was about the networks, especially linked to the security forces and people who is working in the governments, and so they are in the roots of the state, so it's impossible to be self-purged, and those are the ones responsible for violence, for corruption, for poverty, marginalization, because they rule the country as if they were own property. Right. And so there is no change, and that's why we have a lot of social conflictivity now.
Can you say something about the recent deaths of 40 girls due to a fire? And if you can also address the issue of the unaccompanied children that come from what's called the Northern Triangle, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. Can you say something about that?
I think that one of the common things that we share with the North Triangle countries is precisely corruption, in which the politicians or this alliance never allowed the country change. Even the globalization have changed all the countries. We never change. And it's like egocentrico, that they just want to, just money and power, leaving aside the people. And that's why the poverty, the extreme poverty, people doesn't have nothing to lose. So these 40 children, now it's 41 because one child died in Galveston today, so it's 41. They don't have nothing to lose, or the children not accompanying doesn't have nothing to lose, because even though they get here to the border, they have 3 meals, they will have a place to sleep. Instead of in Guatemala, there's nothing to lose. So people prefer to risk their life, but every time they will come, if there is no opportunity in the corruption, because there is an unemployment, or there's no way or no opportunities, then people will start coming.
If you think back to the 1950s or 60s or even 70s, we didn't have this massive migration to the United States. Do you see any links at all between the internal conflicts that happen in Guatemala and the deterioration of the society today?
I think it's that the deterioration during the conflict, it came because it was the violence, and they flew. But now it's not. Now it's not violence. I think Honduras and El Salvador is different from Guatemala. In the Guatemalan case, it's more about lack of opportunities and the extreme poverty that there is in Guatemala, and that's why they come here to the United States, because there's no opportunity. That's why one of the survivors of of these 40 girls said that she preferred to die, burn, than stay where she was living. It's because they don't have nothing to lose, so they prefer to die.
And what's the situation with the indigenous people in the countryside?
I think also they are awakening. I think they start having more consciousness. They are getting more organized, but they still are marginalized, and people are still struggling with the human rights violations of their cases, and that's why they are stigmatized and they are under persecution still. And many of the autoridades ancestrales, the
ancestral communities,
ancestral authorities are being put in jail. So now, for the first time, we're having political leaders, because during the conflict there was no political leaders; they were all killed. So I think there's coming, every time they're coming with more strength.
Yeah. Did the military trials, for example, the genocide trial, did that give some confidence or an awakening or a hope to people in general and indigenous people in the rural areas in particular, or did it have no impact?
Well, everything depends. For communities and victims, and mostly families, I think that just the fact that they could have General Rios Montt and the other ranking military there and tell them, yes, you did this to us, it was important for them. Or in the Sepur Sarco, who they saw them to their face, eye to eye, saying, yes, you did this to us. I think that have been a strength for them, and that's what I'm saying. Every time they're coming with more strength, they're getting more consciousness, and now there's more participation, even though with indigenous, and every time they're fighting to have a place in the society.
Thank you very much.